Ja, schönen guten Abend. Freut uns, dass so viele Leute hier gekommen sind. Yeah, so yeah, good evening, everybody. We're really happy that so many followed the invitation to come here tonight to discuss the global hunger for land, the struggles for land in Tanzania, Hungary, Romania, and Austria. This event has been really like a collective effort of many organizations, as you can see here in the background. Yeah, organizations who organize this event. Events are Welthaus, Katholische Aktion Wien, FIAN Österreich, DKA Drei Königsaktion, Agrartag, White, ÖBV Via Campesina Österreich, die KfB, die Katholische Frauenbewegung und Reduce, die Kampagne von Friends of the Earth beziehungsweise Global 2000. Ja, danke auch ans Otto-Mauer-Zentrum, dass wir hier heute zu Gast sein dürfen. Why did we organize this event? What was kind of the aim behind this? The big aim for us was kind of to connect struggles for land that are happening in Tanzania, as an example for an African country, but also in Europe, Hungary, Romania, Austria. We had a really interesting exchange meeting already this afternoon, and we found many similarities that these struggles share. And yeah, it made us, I think I can speak for the whole group here, that made us realize once again that the struggles for land are truly like a transnational struggle. Yeah, land concentration as well as land grabbing, they do not only occur in developing countries or the global south. In fact, they're also underway in Europe. A new study revealed, about the study we will hear more about later on, but the study revealed that around 3% of all landowners in Europe own about 50% of all farmed land in Europe. So this is a really massive land concentration. It's comparable to land concentration that we also see in countries like Brazil, Colombia, or the Philippines. Yeah, this process of land concentration, it's not new. It's been happening for decades already, but this process really speeded up, especially in the last few years in Eastern Europe. Yeah, and those land deals that we witness now in Hungary or in other European countries share similarities to land deals, for example, in Tanzania, in terms that they are similarly like secretive and intransparent, and also, that I think is one of the most important things, is that they are caused by the same kind of underlying trends, what we call kind of the triple crisis of food, fuel, and finance. Yeah, so I would like to introduce our guests, our speakers. I'll start with the people who had the longest distance behind them to come here. Aaron Buya from Tanzania. He works for an organization called ADP Mbosi. ADP stands for Action Development Program, and he works mainly on working areas are food security and natural resource management, and he's mostly working with peasant farmers. And right next to him, also from Tanzania, is Beate Fabian. She's a lawyer by profession, and she's now working for a land rights organization called Haki Adi. Yeah, she's mainly working on issues connected to land and human rights. Yeah, and both of them are here on invitation of Welthaus and Drei Königsaktion. And our guests from Eastern Europe, I'd like to welcome from Romania, Attila Scroc from Eco Ruralis. It's a peasants association in Romania, and his main work areas are the CAP reform. He works on land grabbing issues, on seed issues, and also agroecology. And in the audience, there are also other guests from Romania. Dan Shimas, he's a farmer from Romania and also co-president of Eco Ruralis. So yeah, I also invite him to speak later on. He's raising his hand right now, and and both of them are here as part of a European speakers tour about land grabs in Romania, organized by ARC 2020. And from Hungary, Robert Fidus from Friends of the Earth Hungary. He has written a case study, country study on land grabs in Hungary. And Franziskus Forster from Austria, from Agrarattack, activist for Agrarattack, but also for Solila. He is studying development studies and political science at the University of Vienna. Okay, so I would say let's start. I would first invite Beata to tell us a little bit about the struggles for land in Tanzania. Land grabbing is happening in Tanzania, we know that, but please share your experience with us, and also what kind of strategies does your organization apply or try to use to fight land grabs, and also what are the connections to Europe, to what is happening in Tanzania.
Grüß Gott. Thank you very much. I'm very glad to be here in Austria. It's my first time also in this country and also in Europe. We are gathered here. It really shows that we have a commonality and a sense of much of what we really need to do with our land. So I would expect much interaction and discussion, but for my side, just as what she said, I will just share a brief view of what we are doing in Tanzania with the focus of the organization I'm working with, because it's a non-governmental organization that addresses nationally the land rights of the small farmers, and these are the 80% of our population that is feeding our country and really need the agricultural land for production of food. And in that area, we normally raise awareness of how important is the land, but at the same time, we work with the legal system in our country, because the existence land legal system in our country have loopholes that pose threat in one way or the other to the rights of small farmers. So much of work we're doing is a lot of analysis, but also collecting through research and policy analysis the concerns of these small farmers regarding their land, but also to have policies and national strategies that connect with their ways of how they should expand their agricultural production in our country, so as they can be in an environment to really address the land. But coming from the point of land grab, because we have much of it, we're doing it in our country. Currently there have been influx of foreign investors. Much of them have been in great demand of land for food security, energy security, and also environmental concerns. I'm quite sure to some of you, these are the global challenges that forces most of the developed countries, big multinational corporations, to search for land in order to feed, to reach these demands. So how it's happening is that much of the small farmers' land is being acquired, and in a situation that much of it is not demarcated, and in a situation that our country have no the legal framework for biofuel, for example, production, but at the same time the concept of renewable energy crops is not known, and even the biofuel industry in terms of how it should be done, how much land it's needed, in terms of how much water will be needed, again the fertility of our land, how much is going to be destroyed in terms of clearing the forests, but at the same time exploitation of labor. So with the connections, most of the European policies and targets on biofuel has been a force of this influx of many foreign companies coming to our country in search of land for planting. For instance, jatropha seeds, sugar cane, palm oil, castor beans, and all this is turning the villagers' farmer, the agricultural land for production of food, to meet these oil demands, because since 2007 there's been very great concerns of non-renewable energy, but at the same time the increase in oil prices. But in terms of food also, there have been increase in a lot of staple food prices. Also there are some countries, for instance from Asia, that are coming also to our country to grab the small farmers' land, mainly for production of food for export, something which is not left behind in our country. So there is also, with this land grabbing, there's also a threat of availability of food in our country, and at the same time the government have now tried to formulate biofuel policy. It's at the draft level, but still we're really, as an organization and the communities at large and the media also, are really questioning it is for whose benefit. So if there is not enough to feed us, and much of the uncultivated land because of the poor technology in the agricultural sector, if it's turned to meet these demands of oil, for example, for biofuel, then it poses a lot of environmental problems, because a lot is going to be cleared, and also availability of food. There will be competition. So with our work, we have made very positive impacts by informing the communities and also connecting with what is going on worldwide, for them to see the threats, but also if there are opportunities, but they should go hand in hand with the national policy strategies that, for instance, in the agriculture, because agriculture is the very valuable sector in our country that is contributing to the economic development. So to the European part, my wish, and I think you have felt how our lifestyles, what we consume, have a direct bearing with land. I came here, I was like connecting these things, and I've heard evidences of food thrown, and much of the population, for instance, those with 2 kilometers distance and below is 25% of the population that is using private transport. So you can see how the demand for oil consumption can be in such a situation. So as the European countries and everywhere, and here in Austria, we should rethink of our lifestyles and change it and have strategies that can best address, but also at the level of the legal framework with the European policies and targets. It was reduced from 10%, now it's 5%, but it still needs further redress if we are to work on our privileges in a situation that does not cause indirect use of land against the exploitation of the other local population in our country as Tanzania. Thank you.
Beata already talked a little bit about it, what's the role of land and the agricultural sector in Tanzania. Now I would like to invite you to tell us more about this subject and also the role of the state in Tanzania. What kind of agriculture is being supported by the state of Tanzania, and yeah, what are maybe the problems associated with that, and what would small farmers, peasants that you work with, what would they actually need in terms of support?
Beata has said a lot about the role of land to our people. 80% of our people are employed by agriculture. This means our country has not a lot of industries or factories to employ people. So majority of the population is employed by agriculture activities, keeping livestock, cultivating or producing food crops, cash crops, also mining, fishing, and so many other things that are related to agriculture. So the government has a role to play to make sure that the farmers work properly to improve their life. In this case, we say the small-scale farmers who live in rural, and these are the main producers of food. But we have this slogan in our country. We say Kilimo Kwanza. This means agriculture first. This is the government politicians say agriculture first. That is, agriculture should be priority number one to Tanzania. But little is being done to make sure that this is implemented. It is spoken at higher levels, but when you come to grassroots, you don't see the effect of this. That is, now the government is not supporting the smallholder farmers in any case by inputs or subsidy of any kind. The farmers are working on themselves to get each and everything to support their agriculture. But when you go to the politicians, they say, okay, everything first agriculture and then other things follows. It is the opposite. So we say, politicians say differently, and what is implemented is different. Farmers have to work on themselves. For instance, there is in 2 years ago, the government was saying that it's going to give the inputs at a subsidized price to the farmers. But this did not work. You see farmers in villages waiting for this promise, but until the season goes, there's nothing taking place. So we say very little is being done for to the government to improve the life of these farmers, small-scale farmers. But instead, now government is inviting a lot of investors to invest on big-scale farming to produce food. But we again see with the big farmers, if they produce food, it means they are going to get a market somewhere. And again, this will create a lot of food shortage in our country, because with the small farmers, farmers can get food at lower prices by bargaining between themselves. But with big farmers, they get the market either outside the country, which we see also. This will create a lot of problems to our farmers with food insecurity. But now, what these small farmers want the government to do? Small farmers in Tanzania want the government to improve the marketing system of their crop, because the present situation, even when farmers produce their crops, there is no system which is put to make it easier for the farmer to sell the crops at a better price. It is the middlemen who come in between. They go to the villagers and decide at what price they are going to buy the food or crops from the farmers. So this is sometimes in most cases farmers don't get profit from what they produce. So the farmers want the government to improve marketing system of their crop. Also to be informed about the prices of even markets which are far from their place, so that those who are able can transfer their crops to these markets. There's no this system of marketing information to the farmers. Also, farmers want the government to improve the infrastructure. This means roads. We have poor roads in our country, so sometimes even if the farmer cultivates a lot of crops and want to take it to the market somewhere in the city or town, it's very difficult for him. Even if he can do this, but it is at a very high cost because of the roads are not well constructed. Sometimes they are not passable the whole season, especially during rain season. It's very difficult for vehicles to go in villages and take foods. So this is also a problem to most of our farmers. It's a barrier to them to sell their crops and also to get money for their families, for the school fees to their children. Yeah. Also, we have these farms which are being operated by the government, national agricultural food companies, which nowadays are not operating. So the farmers who are living near these farms, they are asking the government to give that land so that they can use to produce foods, but the government is not acting in favor of these farmers, but is inviting the big farmers or investors to take those farms, which usually they are very fertile and they have a lot of infrastructure like irrigation schemes, but farmers have no access to use these farms. So farmers also, they are claiming about this one. Also, with farmers, because now they depend on everything by themselves, they are asking the government to put regulation which will favor them or allow them to get some loans from the financial institutions. You know, financial institutions have the regulation that if you want to borrow some money, maybe you have something as a surety. So the poor people have not this. So they're asking the government maybe to create some regulation or rules to favor them so that they can have also some access to borrow or get loans from financial institutions so that they can pay after they harvest. Yeah?
Yeah.
I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now I would like to give you a short overview of this study that has been mentioned today for, several times. Yeah, so this study has been initiated by the European coordination via Campesina, as well as a network called Hands of the Land, Take Action Against Land Grabbing. The part of this kind of Hands of the Land Alliance are organizations like TNI, the Transnational Institute, FDCL in Berlin, EGO in Poland, and several FIAN organizations, FIAN International, FIAN Germany, FIAN Netherlands, and FIAN Austria. Yeah, there have been around 25 authors who have been involved in this study from 11 different countries. But there are case studies on land concentration in Spain, Germany, Italy, France, and Austria, and also case studies on land grabbing in Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria, Serbia, and Ukraine. Yeah, so what are the main findings of this study? First, we witness an increased land concentration in Europe. The land ownership has become extremely unequal, and this concentration already started a few decades ago, but it accelerated, especially in Eastern Europe, where land concentration is especially marked since 1989, 1990. And a lot of public money through CAP subsidies, subsidies by the European Union on the Common Agricultural Policy. These kind of subsidies and the way how they are channeled also support this land concentration. We see creeping land grabbing, especially in Eastern Europe. A bunch of new actors arrived in this scene, and land is being grabbed for multiple reasons: for the production of raw material, for the agri-food complex, for extractive industries, for bioenergy, but also, for example, for real estate interests, etc. And but for all of these reasons that land is being grabbed, they all share this trend to encroach on the most fertile farmland. Number 3 of these kind of big findings is that we witness a blocking entry to prospective, mostly young farmers in Europe. And also the current and the planned CAP subsidy scheme also plays a role in here, and it's likely to solidify kind of these barriers for young prospective farmers to enter farming and get access to land. But on the more hopeful side of things is that there's also a growing and a spreading farmers and people's struggle against land grabbing that we see across Europe. And there are also proactive approaches that we will hear more about later on this evening. That also people, for example, seek land through land occupations. This happened in Vienna, for example. This is happening on a rather big scale in Andalusia in Spain. The recommendations, really short. It's pretty simple, I would say, to stop and reverse the trend of extreme land concentration and land commodification, land grabbing. What is meant by that? This could, for example, happen through kind of redistributive land reforms, as an example. Then a big recommendation to stop land grabbing, to install something like a public tracking system of these kind of land transactions, to have like information about what is happening, or also to put a ban on certain investors who are active in this field. And as a third big recommendation, to assure access to land for farming as a basis to achieve food sovereignty. To have a more democratic process of participation in decision-making on the processes of land issues. And now we will hear from 3 people, about 3 countries, what were kind of like the main issues when they were kind of, doing research for the study. And yes, so first, Fidus, I would like to invite you to speak about the return of the white horse, land grabbing in Hungary. Please.
Dankeschön. I'm really happy to be part of this study because I remember when several years ago within Friends of the Earth network or the other food security movements, we were discussing about land grab. We were trying to convince our friends that land grab is not only happening between Europe and the global south, but land grab is also happening within Europe. And so now I was really happy when I've got an invitation from FIAN, Austria, to be part of this project to write a case study about Hungary. And so the title is Return of the White Horse. I will explain soon why this is the title. So actually, our colleagues were already speaking about the role of the land in Tanzania. I think in Hungary also the land and the soil have a great national value. It has also been reflected already in the new constitution, but historically it also has been reflected in history books and popular legends. So one of such legends is the legend of the white horse that describes how following centuries-long migrations from Asia, the ancient Hungarian tribes entered the Carpathian Basin in around 895 Anno Domini. After receiving news about the wonderful fertile soil and the rich rivers of this area. So then the conquering Hungarian tribes sent a gift, a beautiful white horse to the Moravian chieftain Svatopluk I, and requesting only a cup of water from the Danube, a handful of soil, and some grass from the meadows. And after receiving what they demanded, the Hungarian tribes entered the Carpathian Basin and told Svatopluk that from now on the land belongs to them, because that was the kind of habit that times. So that's the legend of the white horse, and actually, if we are looking at the agricultural and political developments in Hungary nowadays. We can see that actually the white horse returned, but in a little bit different forms, and that is now being called land grab. So in general about the agriculture in Hungary, so the total area of the country is around 9 million hectares. The cultivable area is 7.8 millions, and the agriculture area is about 6 million hectares altogether. So which can be considered quite high among European countries. The share of agriculture in GDP has been decreasing in the last 2 decades, but the share of agribusiness in the same time is still around 12–13%. So it's an interesting disparity. About the legal situations in Hungary, after the fall of the Iron Curtain, there was some kind of short period, 4 years, when both domestic companies and legal entities were able to buy land in Hungary, but after some years, the people realized in Hungary the dangers of what is now we call land grab, but at that time we were just witnessing that it's foreign investments in land. So then there was an initiative for referendum, and the government, in order to prevent this referendum happen, they changed the law on soil or land. So since that time, since 1994, land can be owned by domestic private persons. I mean, can be purchased by domestic private persons in Hungary. So domestic legal entities and foreign persons cannot obtain land ownership since that time. But then came the time when Hungary was already considering to access the European Union, and there started negotiations with the EU, and so there was the possibilities that within a few years this land moratorium will be lifted. So with the accession of the EU, the new member states should harmonize the legal system, enter into the legal market. On the other hand, the land prices were much lower in the new member states than in the old EU countries, and also the people has much more purchasing power, much less money than in the new member states. So these were one of the reasons why during the EU accession negotiations, these countries got some exceptions. So 7 years. They received 7 years to open the land market to foreigners. Actually, Poland has 12 years, according to my knowledge. So originally, the moratorium in Hungary was supposed to be lifted in 2011, but a few years ago we managed to convince the government to start negotiations with the European Commission, and then this moratorium has been extended to by further 3 more years, so it will be expired in May next year. So recently, foreigners still cannot purchase land in Hungary, but after the next year there should be no difference between domestic and EU farmers or investors on the land market. In general, in Hungary, the land use is, on one hand, is highly concentrated, and on the other hand, it's highly fragmented. So it means that big number of small farms compete with small number of huge farmers. So the land use has been disconnected from land ownership, although the Land Act forbids legal entities owning land, but they can lease or they can rent land, thousands of hectares, so creating huge farms. So, for example, there is a figure that in 2009, 8.5% of the farms applied for agriculture subsidies. So 8.6% of the farms who applied for agriculture subsidies that got the 72% of the direct payment. So this is one of the signs of the concentration of the land. And here are some figures about the land prices in Hungary a few years ago. And this is a map in the various small regions, how much the price of the land is. So in some historic and political context, after the fall of the Iron Curtain, there was a kind of wave of reprivatizations, and plenty of non-competitive small farms has been kind of emerged, but then lots of former corporate leaders or lawyers and so on bought up land, where in this case the system of so-called compensation notes was playing a key role, but I think I'm afraid because of lack of time. And anyway, so that's led to concentration of land already in the early 90s. And so I already told you that with the EU accession, the country should open the land market. At least there was a a prospect for lifting the countries, and so there was the difference between the land prices. So there were some investors and lawyers who tried to find some way to circumvent the legal restrictions of for foreign investors buying land. So since they expected that with the EU accession, Hungary will lift the land moratorium, so they developed the method called packet contracts, which was a way to circumvent these legal restrictions. So they created, so they purchased the land, created the contract signed by both parties, but the date was missing. And they were waiting for the time when the land moratorium will be expired, and then they fill the date and go to the land registry office, and they make these deals legal. So as already has been mentioned, so the driving forces of land grabs in Hungary are the case that the agriculture subsidies are higher in the older member states compared to the new member states. So, and there were lots of other drivers which resulted that many farmers in the food sector went out of the business, and so on. So and also the EU agriculture subsidies really the area-based subsidies play a key role in the land grab in Hungary. So regarding the so-called packet contracts, according to the estimations, around despite the legal restrictions, there are already around 1 million hectares of land already in the hands of foreign investors. Most of them are Austrian farmers, German, Dutch, Danish, British farmers, or Italian investors. And since these so-called packet contracts are not alone, so they are also attached with some or linked to some land use kind of leasing contracts as well. So those investors who are involved in these packet contracts, they are already using these land, and they get the agriculture subsidies. So because of this land use linked to the packet contracts, according to the estimations, around 1.1 to 1.8 million euros national and EU agriculture subsidies has been given to foreign land grabbers. There are other ways of land grab in Hungary, which we call domestic land grab, which are about the leasing of the state-owned land. This has been happened already 10 years ago, when some fat cats got thousands or tens of thousands of state land, sometimes paying almost nothing, or just a very few 1 or 2 hectares for 1 or 2 euros for a hectare. But even recently, despite the government rhetoric, so it's very much against reflecting the situation of Tanzania. So although the government is speaking that they are going to support the small farmers and the local farmers and the family farmers, but we can see that the latest 1 year and a half, there were lots of scandals about the tenders of leasing of state-owned land, and it shows that in many cases these land has been received by fat cats, people who having close ties to the government. In some cases, there were issues when the local farmers received any single square meters, by on the other hand a fat cat from another village who has some close ties to the leaders of the ministry or another case, the mayor of the home village of the prime minister, who is actually the president of the Ferenc Puskás Football Academy, which was founded by the prime minister. They got thousands of hectares and so on. So these are the main issues, but it's not only foreign investors are investing in Hungary, but there is one guy, the leader, the owner of the biggest Hungarian bank, OTP Bank. He has a company who has been involved in the land grabbing issue in Zambia. But because of the changes in the government after the elections in Zambia, finally they were, although they was one of the winners of the competition, they were not able to manage to sign the contracts, and after 1 year of negotiations, they gave it back. So now they are looking for land grab in Romania. Cool. Just one latest remark. Because of the opening up the land market for the next year, the government is prepared a new land tenure law proposal submitted to the government. And although they are communicating that this will close and this will stop the packet contracts and other land grab issues, and it will serve the small farmers, the family farmers, it has a lot of loopholes. So if you read the text closely, then actually you can see that in the original form, if it will be voted by the parliament, that will further accelerate the land grabbing. So this is why more than 177 environmental, rural development NGOs and farmers groups, more than 50 farmers groups signed a petition a few months ago, and we demanded several changes to this Land Tenure Act proposal. We want to close the loopholes and so on. And as I already showed in this slide, so in the case of the village Kajászó, where the local farmers received no land, and in other villages very recently there was already cases when the local farmers occupied the land as an opposition to the unfair decisions of the national land fund organizations. Thank you.
Yes.
So while we are not waiting for Bonafarm to invest in Romania, yep, I would like to speak to you about other land grabbing cases and why land grabbing is happening in Romania. What are the main causes of land grabbing? So, well, basically, as also Fidus mentioned, the causes are resembling, and of course in Eastern Europe, the causes are resembling amongst new EU member countries, but well, basically, land grabbing in Romania firstly happens because of Romania's natural resources. We are talking about the black gold, which is the Chernoziom, the really good quality land, the fertile land, which Romania has in the southwest region, the plain areas, and also about other resources like gold, or But I will basically focus on the agricultural land. So basically the natural resources, and then the prices of these resources. Land prices in Romania are very cheap. You can find land from 2,000 to 4,000 euro per hectare. This is very cheap according to the European market. So thus a lot of speculations are happening and were happening since the 1990s from foreign multinational investors to acquire this land in order to gain short-term profits. In like 10 years, they can tenfoldly recover their investments. Also, since we joined the EU, another incentive for land grabbing in Romania were the European subsidies. Basically, land being so cheap and receiving subsidies for those lands offered an extra boost for companies to come in and invest and buy land. Well, another cause of land grabbing in Romania is is because of cheap labor. Basically, you can find very cheap workforce in Romania, and yes, of course, this is another great opportunity for the investors to exploit those 50 people if they need to run a farm. Corruption, of course, is a large problem in Romania. We found that many of the agricultural companies investing in Romania are linked with political parties, are directly influencing their decisions and the way the legislation is made, and in order for them to access easier the land. For example, this is an example of the comparison of prices between East and West, and you can see Romania down there with the 2,000 euros, and the Netherlands with 47,000 euros per hectare. So this is a huge discrepancy. And if we could imagine Romania in 10 years just to rise where Denmark is, then it's a good deal for land grabbers to come in. So who are the land grabbers in Romania? I'm sorry I couldn't fit them all, but there are too many. So I just took some names and threw them in there, and they are not even in the place where they are land grabbing. But I would in the study we were mentioning Emiliana Vestrom, which is from Italy, and it's grabbing land in the the southwestern region of Romania in Banat, and. We also mentioned about Maria Trading, which is a Lebanese company grabbing almost 50,000 hectares of land near Bucharest, Lebanon. Yes. We are dealing with private investors, or we are dealing also with investment funds or pension funds of different banks which are being invested into Romanian farmland, buying up the bulk Romanian farmland. One of these investment funds are like Rabobank from the Netherlands. It's a really big land grabber in Romania. They actually made a Rabo Farm, which is a company of Rabobank in order to access land in Romania. But how do they do it? Well, in Romania, as in Hungary, foreigners cannot buy land, but Romanian government was kind enough to let Romanian registered foreign companies, which register in Romania as a Romanian company, to buy as much land as they want. So in this way, it's an estimation of 800,000 hectares, or 6% of the agricultural area is already cultivated by large multinationals. I can mention that these are not official statistics. These are statistics which are estimated after the subsidies they are receiving from the EU. But to this we can add also the land grabbing done by Romanian agribusiness, which are fat cats, as Fidus also said, also contributing and rising this percentage to, I would say, 10%. So yeah, how do they do it? They have various strategies. One of them is positive marketing, basically coming into an area and just showing how great opportunity they are showing to the peasants, so that they are selling their lands. They are not telling about what kind of agriculture they will use, that they will use pesticide, insecticide, that they will use intensive agriculture, that where the company will export all what it produces, and of course it has no intention on investing in the rural development of those areas. And of course the contracts which are signed have no clear information about all these activities. So either they buy up all the land, which is in this case ex-communist farms, big communist farms which were left uncultivated after the communist regime fell. They are being bought up as they are, and after that, cultivation and grabbing can begin. And the other method they are using is actually renting the land, where they cannot buy up bulkily a land, and they go to all the peasants and they try to pursue them either to sell or to rent out their lands. Basically the rent is 100 euros per hectare per year, or they give 800 kilograms of grain from what they produce, but they mention that the grain, this 800 kilograms could be less if the grain markets are down. So Yes, and usually they rent it for 10 years, and if a farmer wants to break the contract, because let's say the farmer's son wants to come home and wants to do some agriculture, then the farmer who rented the land has to pay 600-700 hectares per year to give it back, compensation for the large landowner, because it disturbed their wonderful businesses. So this is a standard announcement which we found in the Timiș region. Basically, it was translated right here in English, but it's in Romanian. It was in a medicine cabinet in a rural area. Basically, this is from near Cluj in Transylvania, where a Romanian company is grabbing the land, using this technique of putting this sign there, hey, you have to come here, and you have to, necessary documents, copies already, you have to bring everything and come here and to make the contracts. So not even saying that, not even stating, they are usually working with the authorities, but the authorities don't even take in consideration to inform the citizens what does this mean, or are they obliged to do it? It's a mandatory thing which is put in there, come in, you check our heart and your pulse, and then you give your land, and we're done. So opening hours, of course, from 9:30 to 1. That's a small schedule. So what are the impacts of land grabbing? Well, first of all, of course, land dispossession, large-scale land dispossession, and an increase of the land prices. Where in 10 years, land prices in Romania have risen 300%, more than 300%. This is drastic for young farmers, because young farmers, which we see that young Romanian farmers want to do agriculture in Romania, and they cannot anymore because of the high prices of the land. It's low for Westerners, but it's very high for me, for example, because I would like to buy. I would like to have like at least 5,000 euros to buy 2 hectare land, but I cannot afford it. Well, others can afford thousands. So unemployment, of course, it's no active population, and of course no socioeconomic development, and the standard monoculture and industrial agriculture. So our key concerns were because Romanian government, and through these land grabbing cases, the encouragement of the industrial agriculture and the destroying of the peasant agriculture. In Romania, we have almost 5 million small-scale farmers, peasants who are working the land and still producing 30% of the country's needs in food. And of course, the weakening of the local economy and the high speculation on land and price. So thank you very much.
Yeah, Franciscus, now I give the word to you to wrap up everything we've heard, and kind of put it in connection with the Austrian context, what land struggles, what kind of land issues are pressing here in Austria?
Ganz allgemein, das ist ja jetzt am Schluss vom Attila bei der Vorstellung, bei der Präsentation da gefallen. Also diese Thematik des Landgrabbings, die trägt ganz krasse neokoloniale Züge. Und zwar in vielfacher Hinsicht und in unglaublich vielen Formen. Was ich nochmal ganz besonders betonen möchte, ist aber eben auch die Kolonisierung bezieht sich eben auf die Zukunft. Also das ist Kolonisierung der Zukunft, die da passiert. Da werden Entwicklungsmöglichkeiten von ganz vielen Menschen eben im wahrsten Sinne des Wortes verbaut durch dieses Landgrabbing, und deswegen ist das wirklich eine unglaublich wichtige aktuelle Debatte, und ich glaube, da sind wir letztendlich alle aufgerufen, uns in irgendeiner Form dazu zu verhalten. Was man sehen kann, ist, was die Studie sehr, sehr klar eben auch zutage fördert, ist, dass also Landgrabbing und eben dann die Landkonzentrationsfrage in Europa und eben auch in Österreich in dreierlei Hinsicht relevant ist. Und die möchte ich jetzt kurz aufzählen und erläutern kurz. Also erstens Europa und auch Österreich als Kontext von Landgrabbing von wo aus dann Landgrabbing anderswo befördert wird, also von wo es ausgeht. Es wird ganz massiv, ich möchte jetzt nur ein Beispiel bringen von vielen, da gibt es viele Driver, also viele Triebkräfte, aber ganz zentral sind eben dann diese viele Politikfelder, die das aktiv produzieren, also beispielsweise die Politiken, die rund um die Agrartreibstoffe beschlossen werden, also wo dann aktiv anderswo sozusagen Land dadurch beeinflusst wird. Im Klimabereich, im Namen des Klimaschutzes passiert ganz viel Landgrabbing, also auch das ist ganz eine wichtige Thematik. Und was aber auch ganz wichtig ist, ist die gemeinsame Agrarpolitik. Das zeigt die Studie sehr, sehr deutlich, dass mit öffentlichem Geld eben dann Landkonzentration finanziert wird. Und da gibt es ein ganz klares Argument, seit eben noch Fläche gefördert wird, ist es ganz mehr oder weniger eigentlich logisch, dass das zu Landkonzentration in Europa führt und die Studie zeigt, dass das ganz massiv der Fall ist, auch in Österreich. Aber das findet natürlich in vielerlei Hinsicht dann auch Ausdruck. Und die andere Seite ist natürlich, dass dadurch auch eine kleinbäuerliche Landwirtschaft, eine zukunftsfähige Landwirtschaft, die in Richtung Ernährungssouveränität gehen würde, dass das ganz massiv auf Kosten dieser Landwirtschaft geht und deren Ausstieg mitfinanziert wird quasi. Also das sind meistens die sozialen Maßnahmen, sind ganz oft ein abgeschwächter Ausstieg aus der Landwirtschaft. In Österreich hören pro Tag 11 Bauernhöfe auf. Das ist so eine Zahl, die in dem Kontext anzusiedeln ist. Ein zweiter Aspekt ist Europa und Österreich eben dann auch als Region oder als Land, wo Landgrabber zu Hause sind und ganz aktiv sind, sozusagen dann anderswo. Also da gibt es eine ganze Reihe von Beispielen, auch die können wir jetzt nicht aufzählen. Ich möchte nur eines herausgreifen, weil die auch gar nicht so weit weg von da jetzt daheim sind. Die sogenannte MCB Agricole hat 91.000 Hektar in der Ukraine zum Beispiel aufgekauft, um Mais, Raps, Weizen anzubauen. Oder die Petropalm Corp, die hat 50.000 Hektar in Äthiopien aufgekauft. Das sind österreichische Firmen. Die sind jetzt nur ganz, also es gäbe x weitere Beispiele dazu. Und der dritte Aspekt eben Europa und also Europa als Region, in der Landgrabbing passiert. Also auch das haben wir jetzt eher sehr deutlich gesehen. Was ich auch noch, also eine weitere Brücke, die ich auch noch schlagen möchte, weil also bei uns ist ja immer in der Diskussion sehr oft so in diesen abstrakten Bildern, in diesen abstrakten Metaphern des ökologischen Fußabdrucks wird da meistens gesprochen. Und ich würde es vielleicht, um diese Metapher aufzunehmen, auch so ausdrücken, die Studie zeigt, was vielfach unter dem ökologischen Fußabdruck verschwindet. Und da zeigt sie, wenn man da drunter reinschaut, also wo sozusagen dann Land beansprucht wird, da zeigt sie, da geht es um konkrete Lebensbedingungen, da geht es um Machtverhältnisse, da geht es um Rechte von Menschen, da geht es um Menschenrechte und es geht um Widerstand. Und das sind Sachen, die man über den Fußabdruck hinaus vielleicht auch verknüpfen kann, indem man sich mit dieser Studie befasst. Das wäre eine schöne Aufgabe für die nächste Zeit, denke ich. Ganz ein wichtiger Aspekt, weil der noch nicht gefallen ist, das sagt die Österreich-Studie auch sehr deutlich, ist die Thematik der Verbauung und Versiegelung von Flächen. Die ist in Europa ganz, ganz brennend, aber eben auch in Österreich. Also in Österreich werden 20 Hektar pro Tag verbaut oder versiegelt für Zwecke des Straßenbaus, für Infrastruktur, für natürlich für Gebäude und so weiter und so weiter. Und was sie auch sagt, in einer langfristigen Perspektive, seit 1951 ist ein Drittel des österreichischen Ackerlandes verloren gegangen. Also in dieser Form. Also das ist massiv weniger geworden und gleichzeitig also mit dieser Versiegelung, die ganz stark von Städten ausgeht und da je weiter Städte nach außen wachsen, umso mehr ist ganz häufig eben auch fruchtbares Land, gerade das beste Agrarland oft betroffen, weil Städte historisch gerade in diesen Regionen aufgebaut worden sind, umso mehr wird dieses fruchtbare Land verbaut. Also wir verbauen unser fruchtbares Land immer mehr und gleichzeitig gehen wir immer mehr ins Landgrabbing anderswo. Also diese Verknüpfung, die ist ganz zentral und das ist einfach eine ganz wichtige Thematik, der man sich ja endlich mal stellen muss und wo es eine Debatte braucht darüber. Und ich denke, das waren die Mathematiken ganz stark, die letztes Jahr, und um das geht es auch in der Fallstudie dann, in der Österreich-Fallstudie, also wir haben Landwirtschaft in der Stadt analysiert und eben das Fallbeispiel Solila, solidarische Landwirtschaften letztes Jahr, wo Land besetzt wurde. Ich kann jetzt nicht näher darauf eingehen, aber ich denke, genau in dem Kontext und sozusagen da eben auch endlich mal eine Debatte auszulösen, das war, glaube ich, ganz ein wesentlicher Anspruch, und also mit diesem Wissen im Hintergrund, glaube ich, kann man auch nochmal die Bedeutung von diesen Widerstandsformen auch vielleicht nochmal ganz anders begreifen. Und ein Ausdruck ist eben auch diese Studie, also wo wir zumindest mit beigetragen haben. Danke.
Beata, maybe you want to start. There was the question, who are the land grabbers in Tanzania, what countries do they come from, and what kind of raw materials, or what do they produce, what are they in for? And also if you like to add other things, like in reflection of what you've heard now, like from the European countries.
Okay, thank you. The session is very interactive. Land grabbing is indeed happening. Regarding to the question of the companies that are grabbing land in our country, most are coming from the European country. We have companies from Deutschland, Belgium, Netherlands, Norway, Sweden, and also, for instance, much of the land we've been asking how much has been acquired, has been grabbed. I could say with our research work, we've been trying to harmonize this data, because the primary and the secondary data of how much has been grabbed is very difficult, but we are doing it with the ongoing researches that we are doing in our organization, and that's at current moment I can say is like 300,000 hectares. And specifically, for example, we have a research study of BioShape company that is a Dutch and Belgium company, which had acquired 34,000 hectares of land from villages in one of the coastal region district called Kilwa, and this company had requested land for production of jatropha. So in terms of crops, jatropha is mostly produced in our country, and sugarcane, and some other companies are also doing with palm oil. But again, with the understanding of this crop, especially the jatropha crop, it's not a desert crop as what is generally known. It has been identified as the crop that really demands arable land and a lot of water from the production level up to the harvesting and processing level. So that's also a product that is also a threat to our soil, to the biodiversity of our land, but at the same time water problem. And again, most of these companies, based on our research, have failed to operate and to reach to their expectations as per how they required and requested and acquired the land. So there are a lot of abandoned farms, agri-fuel abandoned farms in our country. But again, there are those who have made it to title deeds, but resistances in terms of our communities, there are a lot of resistances now that communities learn from other areas. And again, with our work, for example, I could best positive share good work with our knowledge, raising awareness to these communities to understand these things has added value to most of the parts in our country, for example, because generally most of the production is targeted in the coastal area where the land is arable and also there is availability of water. Compared to other parts of the country, in the northern part, also in Kilimanjaro, Kagera, Morogoro, this all is happening in most regions of our country. So there are resistances, and again, they have reached in a situation that is also bringing challenges and problems in our country. There's been evidences of small farmers banning some farms of the investors, but again, the evidences of good ones that are making track. There are cases that are instituted in our court systems, but again, in terms of the community's struggle, it's really positive, and it's really pushing this thing that we are not supposed to use land for production of biofuel if we have not enough to feed the communities. So they normally talk in a situation that this thing, if we really need it and if it's our priority, then it should not compete with our demands and what our privileges and priorities. And in terms of you also insisted on redress. Okay, on the part of the government view, maybe if I will also say something about on the part of the government. Apart from initializing the legal framework, the environment with the politicians and the government at large responsible for land and natural resources, they are divided. There are those who, in one way or the other, really support this, but there are those who are against it. And if you compare, most are against land grabbing. So there is a really good environment to redress this in our part, and also a very good way to also task most of the European countries regarding land grabbing, that they have to rethink about it. But also generally the environment is very good. We are now writing up our new constitution. So much of the challenges and the historical injustices on land and all this which is going on, land grabbing issues, the communities are very well informed and really speak of the views that in the end will, one way or the other, force the government to embark to amend the laws and put policies in place that, if we are to talk of the land rights of the small farmers, also the support for them through the agricultural sector need to be expanded. Yeah, thank you.
To conclude this, from what my colleague was saying, I would say we globally we have to think altogether. With all these challenges of land grabbing happening everywhere in Africa and also in Europe, we have to think of this increasing pressure of land demand, because land is not increasing, but population is increasing. So we have to think also about how to feed this population, growing population. So we have to balance with this agrofuels and also about food production. We have to think about it globally. We think it is not fair. In some places of our world, people are suffering, people don't have enough food to eat. And also in some places, people are throwing food. They have more than what they need. So we have to think all together so that we live happy life, be in Europe or in Africa. This is my message I want to leave with you. Thank you.
Regarding the resistance, there was one case when in the western part of Hungary, in the Őrség region, in a village called Bajansenye, a kind of strange donation fever broke out a few years ago. So one after another, villagers donated their land to a Hungarian woman who collected property for her Austrian common law husband. Later, she also purchased land, acquiring 63 hectares in this way. But a local farmer, Mrs. Györke, contested these donations, arguing that they were transactions designed to circumvent the preemption rights of local farmers. So finally, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of her. So she was able to reclaim at least 49 hectares of these lands. But this is just in a drop of the ocean. So even in that village, according to estimations, 80% of the 1,200 hectares of land are already hands of foreign investors. But there are some signs. And there was also another case when at least partly two big projects of a company with some Spanish origin has been stopped by the local oppositions. This was a case when actually land grab was just a tool for obtaining huge amount of state subsidies via kind of fake giga-mega investments. So they were involved with close. So one of these issues was when they got land in a village in Somogy County called Savoy, where they was promising to build a Balaton ring, which was supposed to be a motorcycle race course. And the other was a patch where they was promising to build a golf village. But finally it turned out that they actually just wanted to get a huge billions of Hungarian forints or tens of billions of Hungarian forints state subsidies from the National Development Bank or whatsoever. So finally both of these projects has been failed. So these are some of the examples. Regarding the issue of the packet contracts and the promises of Viktor Orban, the Prime Minister, well, this is the rhetorics. So the government is pretending to serve the small farmers, the family farmers, and they are speaking about ending the packet contracts. But if we are looking in the close details of the new land tenure law submitted to the parliament, for example, so that actually would further accelerate the land concentration. So there are huge loopholes, or I would say gateways, instead not just loopholes, which would provide more and more possibilities for companies to increase their land. Actually, so although there has been a so-called salad law voted by the agriculture salad law voted by the parliament around Christmas, this is a kind of law when you put everything in it and then you mix it and give it to the parliament to vote it. So, and actually some of these parts of these proposals was submitted by the goal to close the way of packet contracts. But according to the analysis of Peter Rossig, the former chair of the Győr-Moson-Sopron Agriculture Chamber, who is actually one of the best experts in packet contracts issues, so these changes probably would prevent some of the new packet contracts, but the already existing ones will not being solved. But it will be only prevent just partly. But in my point of view, the new proposed Land Tenure Act actually will really open up the market for foreign investors. So in the future, I think we will not need to speak about packet contracts, but it will be a legal norm. So it will not be packet contract anymore, actually.
So regarding the first question, the positive outcomes of a foreign investment, large-scale foreign investment, well, when we talk about positive outcomes, well, for regarding this case, we're in the Timiș region, in the west, southwest region. Of course, when the company comes in and offers the aging peasant some incentive, 100 euros per hectare, and he immediately accepts it, and he's happy. He has 100 euros in his hand. It's a lot of money for, you know. But meanwhile, his children are working picking strawberries in Spain. So I don't think it's so positive anymore. He's happy, but the children are not. So because they cannot come back to work the land there. So I don't think there are any positive aspects of large-scale land grabbing. However, I just want to state that we do not have a nationalistic approach when we talk about land grabbing. It's not about foreigners coming into Romania, it's about foreigners unbalancing the Romanian countryside, because we also have foreigners, members of eco-ruralis, farmers which came to Romania, they settled into the local community, actually they are suddenly fell in love with the local community, rebuilding houses and doing agriculture together, and these are positive examples, and we are happy for them, and we struggle, we fight together against land grabbing in Romania. There's an English couple we have, or from the Netherlands, which came in and do wonderful farming in respecting the land and respecting the community.
Ich möchte auch noch kurz zu der Frage mit der Landkonzentration, ob das jemals schon rückgängig gemacht werden konnte. Und so. Das ist ein großes Thema, aber es gibt Beispiele, und das ist ganz oft verknüpft damit Landreform, mit der Thematik und Agrarreform. Und ich denke, dass diese Thematik auch wieder an Bedeutung gewinnen wird. Was ist aber ganz eine klare historische Erfahrung ist, dass das nie, also progressive Auswirkungen haben solche Landreformen nie ohne Widerstand gezeitigt. Also das war eine ganz klare, also immer dann, wenn sie die Menschen immer zusammengeschlossen haben und so Widerstand organisiert haben, dann waren progressive Ausgänge möglich und Ergebnisse möglich. Und das ist auch das Thema heute wieder, also ganz klar. Und in puncto Widerstand ist, glaube ich, auch ganz eine zentrale Herausforderung. Eben Widerstand gibt es ja in vielfältigster Form und bezieht sich auf verschiedenste Forderungen und Vorstellungen, aber es gibt es auf lokaler, auf nationaler, auf internationaler und transnationaler Ebene. Und ich denke, dass gerade die Studie da ein schönes Beispiel ist, ein erster Ausdruck, wie sie das auch verknüpfen kann, und da ist gerade wirklich ein Fortschritt passiert. Und auf lokaler Ebene schaut natürlich der Widerstand ganz anders aus wie auf anderen Ebenen. Also das ist nämlich ganz wichtig. Und es gibt einige schöne Beispiele. Eines ist eben neben Solida, eben auch die Stadt in Frankreich, wo ein riesiges Flughafenprojekt geplant ist, und das ist eine riesige Fläche, die eben besetzt worden ist. Und das finde ich eine ganz schöne Vorstellung eben auch. Und ein weiteres Beispiel wäre Grow Heathrow, das kommt nicht vor in der Studie, aber das ist in Großbritannien, aber wo die widerständigen Akteure in der Lage sind, einerseits defensiv Aktivitäten zu setzen, indem sie zum Beispiel das Land besetzen, und gleichzeitig aber auf diesem Land proaktiv und offensiv eine Alternative aufzubauen. Und das ist sowohl bei der Saat eben der Fall, wo man ganz massiv eintritt für kleinbäuerliche Landwirtschaft, für landwirtschaftliche Nutzung, für zukunftsfähige, zukunftswürdige Landwirtschaft, und gleichzeitig aber Widerstand leistet gegen ein ganz anderes Entwicklungsmodell, das eben genau dem entgegensteht. Und wenn das sichtbar wird, wenn das gelingt, glaube ich, ist Widerstand ganz gut unterwegs. So. Aber es gäbe da sehr viel zu sagen.
So, regarding the giving the fall of the communist regime and how land was given back to the original owners in Romania, this was a mess, and the many times the owners received back their lands in totally different regions, let's say from where they live. So it was really hard to access their lands. But this is one case, or other cases that right at the very beginning, when they started to give back the land, then those fat cats, those wise guy, grabbed the opportunity to grab more lands, or to do lower kinds of land switches in order to get the profitable lands, so it was done with almost, you know, very small monetization, or without any clear vision on how everything will be done, how agriculture will be done after this regaining of the land. And of course it took also a lot of land fragmentation, because of course very small parcels were given back to everybody, and to total chaos even today. Even today we are confronting the giving back of the land, and also the Romanian state owns still a lot of land through its National Land Agency, which is a big player in collaborating with land grabbers, because this is the first place they go and ask for land to be bought or leased from the Romanian government. Yeah, this is it. And regarding Austrian land grabbers, because yes, indeed, we didn't mention that we are in Austria, and we can also talk about an Austrian land grabber who's called Andreas von Bardeux. He's actually a descendant of the Habsburg nobles, or how should I put it? Royalty, he's royalty, yeah, and His Highness bought actually 27,000 hectares of farmland in Romania. He's the fifth largest land investor in agriculture in Romania, doing super intensive agriculture in the southwestern region of Romania. And also in partnership with Count Esterházy, bought approximately 11,000 hectares of forests, of prime forest in Romania, which they exploit in order to put lumber on the Western markets. And this is you know, the standard things. They're receiving subsidies, of course, millions of euros, and was very much involved in 2011 and 2010. It was in court cases. For example, just in one city town of Romania in the southwestern region, it had 500 counts of cases, judgment cases, with the local people who sold their land, but the contracts were made in a fraudulent way, or didn't want to sell their land, but they were taken, and you know, they started to judge. And he even used his political power to bribe magistrates. So he actually gave land to some guy, a judge, in order to rule favorably. So he used the land also as a bargain for these cases. And yeah, this is one corruption exposed. So this is André von Bardeux. It's called Bardeux Holding or Bardeux Group. It actually consists of 16 companies registered in Romania, doing vertical integration from cultivation to processing and distribution. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, so the situation regarding the restoration or reprivatization of land is a little bit similar to Romania, with one little difference that I already mentioned. This instrument of the so-called compensation notes. So actually, after the fall of the Iron Curtain, one of the main political program of the smallest governing party, the Smallholders Party, Kisgazdapárt, was to give back the land to the farmers. And actually this resulted in this kind of dual system of now that we are having, that lots of small farms has been created in the first years, but because it happened in a time after 40 years of kind of communism and urbanization and whatsoever. So quite a lot of people who received back the land, their ancestors or fathers and mothers owned in the past, they got the land when they have already moved to the cities or into the capital, and they lost the contact with the land. So most of them sold their land to big investors. That was one of the way of development leading to concentration of land, and the other one was this compensation notes, which was so every people who suffered in a way or other during the communist regime, or their property has been nationalized by the government, or their land has been nationalized, or whatsoever, they received a kind of compensation note, which was similar to a banknote, but you could almost not use to for anything. But these compensation notes were one of the instruments which you were able to use during the land auctions on local level. So since there was no real value of this, there were lots of investors who collected lots of compensation notes, and they used it giving to the local farmers, because the local farmers were only eligible to bid during the local competitions. And actually they got the land and then immediately gave it to the investors. So that was one of the way of the land concentration in Hungary.
Ein kleiner Hinweis, es ist gerade ein Buch erschienen, das Schwarzbuch Reifeisen, wo man auch ganz viele Verbindungen entdecken kann zu den Themen, die wir heute besprochen haben. Und gerade in Osteuropa ist das natürlich ganz massiv der Fall. Und ja.
Yeah, thank you. Now to conclude is in Tanzania, I should say, we don't have that land that is left for people, for investors to come to invest for, either for commercial farming or agrofuels production. It is because we have poor technology to cultivate our land, but we still need that land for food production. We have around about 45 million people now, so we need that land to produce food. And as I said before, our country is not industrialized one, so majority of our people depend on agriculture to employ themselves. So we have to think about this, even if the politicians are saying, come, you are welcome, we have a lot of land. No, it is because of our poor technology to cultivate. We don't have big machines to cultivate land. We cultivate only little for subsistence level. But we need that land to make our life. Thank you.
To me, this is a very valuable session, but also part of raising the awareness of most of Austrians here, but also something that we should think of doing the same in other European countries. This is very important. I've been here for 3.5 weeks now. Most of the Austrians, and I hope also in the other European countries, are not well informed about land grabbing and also about our lifestyles and our consumption that have a direct bearing with the land and the global race for land outside our borders. So with all the levels, awareness raising is very important, but at the same time it should be known that the situation, if it's left to be like this, if it continue to be like this, it's not opportunity for developing way internationally cooperation and development to most of the developing countries like Tanzania, but at the same time, most of the socio-economic livelihood have not changed through this kind of instances where most of the policies are not coherent with other countries' strategies and everything regarding how valuable is our land and how much we need it for economic development. It's very good for us with this session. Now we start talking about land. So let's talk land, let's talk about our lifestyles, let's talk about what's happening to other countries that have a connection with what we are doing. But on the part of those who are pro-agrofuel, this goes to all levels. It may also happen to communities that are supporting this, politicians and leaders at the European level. If we are to work on these privileges, if we believe it's also a source of addressing climate change, then it's better to see the best procedures, the best sustainable ways of addressing, and this has to go hand in hand with the concept of consumption. How much we import, something about transparency at the same time on what we need for, because we are human beings, we need all the standards ways of life. So if consumption issues are left behind and it's all about agrofuel without caring or saying where that land is going to come from and everything like that, because Africa, for instance, Tanzania, has been targeted as areas where this land is available. So in that way, it seems like most of these pro-agrofuel people think that because much is not cultivated, for example, in our country, because of the technology of the farmers, that land which is left uncultivated is not a dead capital to us, something which most of European countries take it. It's something very valuable to us in terms of the increasing population, because land is not increasing. But at the same time, the food situation in our country has not reached the rate that, for example, here in Austria you have enough. So much of it has, the uncultivated land, all need to be integrated in very positive agricultural strategies and support to the small farmers who are really struggling in a situation of more personal group ways and cooperative, is that we as an organization are taking the concerns of these farmers to tell the government that it's the same small farmers that are going to bring economic development in our country and no other way. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Beata, also for mentioning the topic of agrofuels. This is especially important in Austria, because Austria on a European level is one of the strongest supporters pro-agrofuel. Yes, but I don't want to leave on such a negative note, and also remind you what I really like today, that we talked a lot about resistance, about alternative visions for agriculture, and I think also the study was mentioned a lot, and I think it's not just a study, I think it's a really important contribution to a process, a larger process that is going on. And now I receive a sign. Yes, please.
Excuse me, I want to say something for the final. Yes, yesterday we was in Paris. Today in Vienna. Tomorrow we are going to Luxembourg. Day after tomorrow in Brussels, and then Berlin and Amsterdam, the final. I think it's not just our struggle. is for everybody, this fight, this struggle. And we think we must do together something to change the things. It's very important to don't let the farmers alone. The consumers, the politicians, everybody who feel to want to change something in this world, to involve in this process. It's very important for us and for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Franciscus, Beata, Fidus, Attila, and also thank you to Brigitte Orner for translating to